Paddy Pimblett. This dude gains 55 pounds between fights like it's a competitive sport, then somehow transforms into a legitimate UFC killer who destroys people that should murder him on paper. Paddy the Baddie will step out of the octagon at 155 pounds, looking like a professional athlete, then show up 3 months later weighing 210 pounds like he's been exclusively eating pizza and drinking beer as his full-time job. His weight swings are so extreme that transformation photos literally break the internet because people think they're looking at two completely different human beings. We're talking about a guy who gains and loses entire small children worth of body mass like his metabolism operates on cheat codes. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Despite fighting like he learned technique from watching drunk fans brawl in parking lots, he keeps demolishing elite UFC contenders who've trained their entire lives for this moment. His striking looks like someone described boxing to him while he was blackout drunk, wild haymakers from his ankles, footwork suggesting he thinks movement is optional, and defense that makes professional coaches physically ill to watch. Yet somehow this beautiful chaos produces knockout after knockout against guys who should be picking him apart with basic jab-cross combination. His timing makes zero sense according to every fighting principle ever taught. He'll throw the most telegraphed, ugliest overhand right in UFC history while his opponent is executing perfect technique, and Paddy's sloppy disaster shot lands clean while their textbook combinations miss completely. It's like he exists in a parallel dimension where proper form is actually a disadvantage, and chaos theory governs fight outcomes. The ground game is where Paddy becomes genuinely supernatural in the weirdest way possible. Elite wrestlers take him down expecting easy control. He flops around like he's drowning for 30 seconds, looking completely helpless, then suddenly locks up submission that make BJJ black belts question everything they know about leverage. His transitions follow no logical sequence taught anywhere on earth. He'll be getting dominated, start flailing randomly, then somehow end up choking his opponent unconscious. Between camps, this man eats like he's actively trying to destroy his own career. His off-season diet consists entirely of whatever he can fit in his mouth, while his weight balloons so fast that his clothes probably don't fit from week to week. Then, somehow, he cuts all that weight and shows up looking like a completely different species of human being. What makes Paddy absolutely mind-breaking is that his entire approach screams amateur hour disaster, yet he keeps proving that pure Liverpool stubbornness, inexplicable timing, and the ability to completely reshape your body can overcome decades of proper training and discipline. He's living proof that mixed martial arts hasn't been figured out, that beautiful chaos can still beat technical perfection, and that sometimes the most entertaining fighters are the ones who refuse to make any sense whatsoever. Paddy Pimblett fights like someone who accidentally became elite at violence while treating their career like an extended social experiment, and somehow that approach has made him one of the most compelling athletes in the sport. Thompson. His nickname's Wonderboy, and it actually fits perfectly in a division where most guys try to pressure forward and brawl like street fighters. He moves like he's in a point karate tournament and still gets incredible results. He's 6'0" and somehow manages to beat power punchers with distance management and perfect timing instead of raw aggression. Most welterweights try to wrestle aggressively or throw bombs, hoping to end fights early. Steven just dances around them like he's putting on a martial arts demonstration. He doesn't rack up flashy knockout stats. His finish rate stays relatively low, but he finds ways to win decisions by doing all the technical things that make coaches fall in love. He counters perfectly, maintains distance like a surgeon, plays smart defense, and basically just confuses opponents by looking like he's sparring while they're trying to murder him. Offensively, he avoids brawling unless the opportunity is absolutely perfect, and even then, it's calculated rather than emotional. He lives on the outside of striking range, scoring with kicks and precise combination. Defensively, he makes smart reads using years of karate experience, uses footwork that looks effortless, and employs his traditional martial arts background to stay just out of range without absorbing unnecessary damage. What makes him weird is everything about his approach. He plays like an old-school martial artist in a young man's violent game, but coaches keep giving him main events because the stuff he does actually works, even if it's not always the most exciting thing to watch. Diaz, known as the Stockton Slapper, he played like every fight was a street brawl that happened to take place inside an octagon. His boxing was absolutely ridiculous. Constant volume, slapping combination, trash talk through bloody lips like he was allergic to traditional technique. He averaged nearly 200 strikes thrown per fight, but also ate a lot of shots because his defense consisted mainly of walking forward. His defense to offense ratio was basically non-existent, which is fine if you're doing Stockton street fighting, not ideal for championship level competition. His cardio was a complete circus act, endless pace, constant pressure, never-ending combinations, sometimes lasting all 5 rounds, when opponents were dying from exhaustion. He wasn't breaking down technical strikers for easy finishes. He was drowning them in volume and attitude, until they broke mentally. But the risk was real. Around 40% of his losses came from getting out-wrestled while trying to match. Scoring was never clean with him because his style didn't rely on precision. He won through accumulation rather than technique, just constant pressure and Stockton slaps that added up over 5 rounds. His wrestling defense existed, sort of. He stuffed takedowns through pure stubbornness and got taken down by elite grapplers who could time his forward pressure. Nate was never about playing it safe. He made fights look wild, unpredictable, and sometimes bloody, but always entertaining in a way that made casual fans love him. Roy Nelson, Big Country, played entire fights like he was your drunk uncle at a barbecue who somehow wandered into the octagon. He barely looked athletic, barely moved with any sense of urgency, and somehow coaches kept booking him in main events. His cardio was just awful, one of the worst conditioning levels for any heavyweight, but he made history by possessing one of the most dangerous overhand rights in the division. In 2013, he became one of the few fighters to knock out multiple former champions while looking like he should be selling insurance instead of throwing hands. He threw maybe 10 significant strikes per round and still terrified opponents because when he connected clean, people went to sleep immediately. Most of his knockouts were overhands thrown with perfect timing, and he barely used footwork or created complex striking angles. But that power forced opponents to respect him even when he looked completely out of shape. His wrestling was quiet like everything else. He averaged less than 1 takedown per fight, but his sprawl game let him stay upright against most grapplers. He never moved much during fights, never cut much weight, and almost never looked like a professional athlete who took training seriously. Roy Nelson proved you don't need to look like a fighter to crack skulls. You just have to never give up on that one big shot and have enough natural power to end fights with a single connection. Clay Guida. His nickname was the Carpenter, and honestly it made perfect sense because his fights didn't follow normal rules of pacing or strategy. That striking looked like he was hammering nails frantically. Constant motion, weird angles, and frantic energy, but he still won decisions through pure activity. He hit over 200 significant strikes per fight and maintained nearly 60% activity rate throughout entire fights. It made zero visual sense, but somehow worked because his cardio was absolutely inhuman. He wasn't just a striker with chaotic energy, he wrestled every position imaginable. One round he's shooting doubles, the next it's sprawl and brawl, then suddenly he's attempting submissions or scrambling like his life depended on it. He fought lightweight, welterweight, some featherweight, and even considered bantamweight cut. His cardio was genuinely inhuman, scoring most of his wins through late-round pressure when opponents were exhausted. He wasn't calling for technical exchanges. He was running at people in fast breaks or hitting scrambles with that manic energy nobody could copy. Defensively, he was everywhere at once. He averaged over 1 takedown defense per round, and he did all this while running around like his hair was on fire. What made Guida unorthodox wasn't just his motor. It was that his weird, energetic approach made him a cardio nightmare every single fight. His style proved that sometimes overwhelming pressure and endless cardio can beat superior technique if you're willing to turn every fight into a war of attrition. Kevin Holland, a 6'3" middleweight who talks more during fights than most people do at parties, sometimes even having conversations with the crowd while getting punched in the face. His striking game is legitimately dangerous. Long reach, decent power, creative angles, that's what lets him pick apart technical strikers and land highlight reel knockouts. Offensively, he barely wrestles. His takedown attempts are basically non-existent, but that's by design. He stands and bangs, waits for openings, then unloads combinations to make opponents panic. Good knockout power throughout his career, and when he decides to let his hands go, it's usually worth watching. Defensively, he's a complete problem. He talks to everyone, opponents, referees, commentators, fans in the crowd, if necessary. In fights, he's literally had conversations with Joe Rogan while defending takedown. Doesn't matter how serious the moment is, he treats every fight like a social event with some violence mixed in. At 31, he's slowed his talking slightly, but he's still that guy who makes press conferences entertaining just by existing. No stats show his biggest impact, but Holland's real value is in the memes he creates and pure entertainment he provides. Serious fighter with legitimate skills, sure, but never too serious to roast his opponent mid-fight while defending submission. Derrick Lewis. This guy's like a knockout artist, trapped in the body of someone who genuinely hates cardio and training camps. He leads heavyweight knockouts in recent years and makes even technical strikers afraid to engage because his power is just completely stupid. But then you watch him try to wrestle and wonder if he forgot he's 6'3" and weighs 265 pounds. His takedown defense numbers are rough, not exactly sprawling even when he's getting taken down. The cardio has been brutal too. Round 3 and beyond, his output drops dramatically. Offensively, he's got more in common with a one-punch artist than a well-rounded heavyweight. He throws maybe 30 significant strikes per fight, but has dropped over 20 knockouts in his career, mostly without needing to work for position. His ground game is practically minimal. Don't expect him to pass guard or work submissions from his back. The advanced stats back it all up. Low volume, incredible power, and conditioning that makes coaches nervous. But when it comes to entertainment value, He's absolutely committed to violence and finishing fights early. His post-fight interviews are legendary for their honesty about his own limitation. That combination of devastating knockout power and complete honesty about his weaknesses makes his fighting style one of the weirdest in the division. Tony Ferguson. Watching him fight was like MMA in a fever dream. A lightweight who moved like he learned striking from watching horror movies, but somehow dominated elite competition for years. His striking was completely unorthodox. Elbows from weird angles, spinning attacks that defied logic, and footwork that looked like interpretive dance, but kept him out of trouble. He averaged over 6 significant strikes per minute across his legendary win streak, which is incredible volume for someone throwing such creative combinations. But that cardio was absolutely elite. He could maintain this chaotic pace for 5 full rounds while opponents wilted. His ground game was pure nightmare fuel. He'd hit submissions from positions that don't exist in textbook. Darce chokes, arm triangles, and transitions that made BJJ experts rewrite their understanding of leverage. The wild part is all of that was wrapped in the most unpredictable training methods in the sport. Kicking steel poles, doing Wing Chun in swimming pools, wearing sunglasses indoors. When he was winning, it looked like genius preparation. When he started losing, it all seemed completely insane. That's what made him so strange. So many elite skills jammed inside a fighter who trained like he was preparing for a different sport entirely. His mental approach was unlike anything anyone had seen, combining legitimate skill with apparent madness in a way that somehow worked until it suddenly didn't. Fabricio Werdum. Somehow he became one of the most dominant heavyweights without looking like he belonged in a boxing gym. He averaged over 2 submission attempts per fight and won the heavyweight title through grappling in an era dominated by knockout artists. That's absurd, especially since most heavyweights can barely spell triangle choke. His submission percentage was over 60%. He didn't just threaten with submissions. He finished elite heavyweights with them. On the feet, Werdum was crafty rather than powerful. His striking looked awkward but proved effective through weird timing and unexpected angles. He'd bait overhand rights, then drag fights to the mat where his advantage was overwhelming. Now here's the twist. His cardio was actually excellent for a heavyweight. Most big men gas after 2 rounds, but Werdum could grapple hard for 5 full rounds without slowing down. His ground control time averaged over 8 minutes per fight when he got takedowns. He just didn't care about looking pretty, and yet the results spoke for themselves. He helped revolutionize heavyweight MMA by proving that technique could beat athleticism, even at the highest levels where physical advantages usually determine outcome. Urijah Faber. He's the guy doing everything except what most bantamweights are known for. He's 5'6", fighting bigger men, scrambling like a gymnast, and still managing to build one of the sport's most successful training camps. His wrestling is incredible. 4.2 takedowns per fight average, which is elite. He controls fighters and somehow outmuscles bantamweights without being the biggest guy in there. He's averaging 3.8 submission attempts per fight even now, and that's higher than most pure grapplers. His scrambling ability is over 80% for his career, and he's completed more guard passes than most fighters attempt. That's part of what makes him so effective. He barely cracks 15 strikes per minute, but no one cares because he controls fights through grappling. He shoots under 45% accuracy from distance, but he's still crucial to Team Alpha Male's success. Why? Because he finds opening, sets up teammates' opportunities, and keeps developing young fighters while maintaining his own edge. Sure, he's not the knockout artist some fans want, but the guy builds champions. He coaches through pure energy, develops talent into contenders, and leads by example even when his own title shots don't work out. His impact goes way beyond personal statistics. He's built a legacy through the fighters he's developed. Donald Cerrone, the guy moves like he's stuck in a honky-tonk bar fight, but somehow orchestrated one of the most entertaining UFC careers in modern history. For his peak years, he's averaging over 4 significant strikes per minute as a lightweight. That's actual volume striker territory. He's tossing head kicks, body shots, and elbows, and his finishing rate sits at 65%, which isn't normal for someone who fights as often as he does. Now, the striking, you won't see him playing it safe or point fighting. Most of his finishes look like highlight reel, whether it's a head kick or some submission he grabbed in a scramble. Still, he's giving fans entertainment every single time on ridiculous activity level. His signature, let's bang bro mentality looks reckless, but it produced some of the most memorable fights in lightweight and welterweight history. Defense-wise, he's not winning any safety award, but he knows where the action is. 1.8 knockdowns absorbed per loss might seem high, but decent recovery numbers made him surprisingly durable. And the activity level? He's booking fights every few months and immediately looking for the next opponent. No extended breaks needed. That's why he's weird. That's why it worked. He breaks every rule for what a professional fighter's career should look like in terms of rest and recovery. Saunders. Somehow this 6'2" welterweight fights like he's made of rubber bands and pure submission instinct. He averaged over 8 submission attempts per fight this year, which is insane when you remember he's competing against elite grapplers who know what's coming. His submission percentage, nearly 70%. That's higher than specialists who spend their entire careers working exclusively on ground game. But it's not just submissions that make Saunders weird. He doesn't stop moving ever. He transitions constantly, scrambles like his life depends on it, hunts for limbs, then turns around and throws spinning attacks without warning. He's averaging nearly 6 minutes of ground control time per fight, because coaches don't trust anyone else to be that active on the mat for that long. His striking is decent, around 12 significant strikes per round, but he's efficient enough to never force the stand-up game when his grappling is superior. He doesn't need to outbox people to win consistently. The crazy part is how he makes it look effortless. Saunders isn't grinding for positions. He's flowing between them like he's doing yoga with violence mixed in. His transitions are so smooth that opponents often don't realize they're in danger until the submission is locked in tight. Caceres. We've never seen anything like this guy in terms of pure movement and creativity. He's 5'10" with decent reach, but he's out there, moving like he's dancing at a nightclub, while somehow staying competitive against elite bantamweights. Most fighters his size try to pressure forward and create wrestling exchanges, but Caceres actually flows around the octagon like he's performing interpretive dance. It's absolutely bizarre. In recent seasons, he's fought at bantamweight most of the time, but still shows up at featherweight when opportunities arise. He also mixes striking and grappling seamlessly, and somehow managed to create one of the most unique fighting styles in the division. That's the kind of versatility coaches dream about, but never expect to see executed successfully. His striking numbers look modest on paper, but it's all about timing and creativity rather than volume. He's not loading up on power shots, just staying active and keeping opponents guessing. Offensively, he's dropping solid output per round while mixing in takedown attempts and submission threats, like he's playing a different game entirely. When he does have off nights, you can see how much his style depends on perfect timing and rhythm rather than physical advantage. His success proves that creativity and movement can overcome physical disadvantages if you're willing to be completely different. Conor McGregor, a featherweight who moved like he owned every octagon he stepped into, and somehow convinced the entire world he was the greatest striker alive through pure confidence and left-hand power. Yeah, that completely broke MMA expectations. Most featherweights use speed and cardio to control fights. Conor used precision, perfect timing, and an absolutely ridiculous ability to get inside opponents' heads before fights started. He wasn't just a knockout artist. He revolutionized self-promotion and made every press conference must-see television. His striking stats during his rise were incredible. Over 70% accuracy on significant strikes and knockout power that made elite fighters hesitate to engage. He didn't throw volume combinations, barely averaged over 3 strikes per minute, but still finished fights early through perfect counter-striking and distance management. His mental game lived in the pre-fight build-up and opening exchanges where he broke opponents before they started fighting seriously. On defense, he wasn't wrestling anyone, but his 6'0" frame and creative footwork made him hard to hit clean when focused. What made him unorthodox wasn't just the power or promotion. It was the combination of technical skill, psychological warfare, and pure star power that no one had touched since. That's how you get multiple division titles, massive pay-per-view numbers, and a legacy that changed how fighters approach self-promotion forever. Silva. The guy moved like he was conducting an orchestra, while everyone else was playing air guitar. In a division where most middleweights try to pressure and overwhelm opponents, he danced around the octagon like he was putting on a martial arts clinic. His striking was pure artistry, matrix-like head movement, hands down by his waist, and somehow landing pinpoint counters while looking completely relaxed. He averaged incredible striking accuracy throughout his legendary title reign, often hitting over 60% while making elite strikers miss completely. Most fighters his size try to use their reach to jab and keep distance. Anderson used his reach to lean back from punches, like he was in slow motion, then fire back with laser precision. His defensive stats were ridiculous. Some fights he'd get hit less than 10 times, while landing clean shots consistently. But here's what made him truly weird. He'd taunt opponents mid-fight, drop his hands completely, and somehow make world-class fighters look amateur. His psychological warfare wasn't trash talk like Conor's. It was pure disrespect through superior skill. He'd literally dance between exchanges, bow to opponents, and make faces at the crowd while avoiding punches. His front kicks became legendary after the Vitor Belfort knockout, and his clinch work was sneaky effective despite not looking like a typical Muay Thai fighter. What made Silva unorthodox was everything: the showboating, the matrix-level defense, and the ability to make elite competition look easy while entertaining crowds. His style proved that fighting could be pure art if you were skilled enough to back up the theatrics.